Your St. Louis Bucket List now has an official handbook. Details next on City Corner. I'm Steve Potter, and welcome to City Corner. And we'd like to welcome our guest, St. Louis author Amanda Doyle, who has written a second edition of her book, 100 Things to Do in St. Louis Before You Die.
Right, I'm still around. I figured it was time to update it. The first one didn't do me in, so
You were on this program with me, what, was it 4 or 5 years ago the first edition came out?
Correct, right. And it's been a book that's been well received, and so I got the chance to put out a second edition, which was very exciting. Anytime you get to keep writing books, it's a good thing.
Yeah. So does that mean that these are 100 new things, so altogether there are 200?
That is a great question. No. I went to journalism school and I did not have to take much math, so I did not go for, no. So here's what happened. The main impetus, honestly, is that Chuck Berry passed away. He was one of the 100 things to do in the first edition.
Right.
Go see Chuck Berry while you still have a chance. And as I said,
At Blueberry Hill, right?
At Blueberry Hill, monthly concert. So I hope people took that seriously because that was truly a St. Louis limited thing. The book needed a little updating anyway, and so I was talking with the publisher about new things that had come online, some things that weren't as compelling anymore maybe, and a lot of things just needed updates of information. So in terms of brand new things, there are probably 10 to 12 that are in the book. Everything has gotten refreshed though, so old info that didn't apply anymore is out. New ideas for things to do at some of the attractions.
And how do you think people use this book? I always think it's great for somebody that maybe just moved to town, or if you have guests coming in, or how do you kind of see it?
I have a friend who refers to it as her glove compartment book. She and her husband are big hikers, and so on the weekends they frequently are going to go hike somewhere around, and they keep a copy in their glove compartment, and then to find out what's close to them that they could go do afterwards. I use it for long days home with my children when I've played Play-Doh and Princess and everything that I want to play. We just look and grab something to go do. And there are some people, I have a lot of friends who have Airbnbs and things like that, and so they buy copies to keep at their homes just for that, to hand to guests and say, hey, find out what you want to do or tell me what you want to know more about and we'll send you there.
That's perfect. A little bit later I want to ask you about your first experiences to St. Louis, because you're not a native, and you were one of these people that could have used this book a few years ago.
I think I kind of eventually wrote it because I could have. Yeah, I think if you are new to a place and you're interested in staying there, which I definitely was when I first came to St. Louis, I just was really curious, which is a nice way of saying nosy.
So it's a very nice way. So this is 100 things, and it might be things like you would think of, like the Arch.
Sure.
But then there are things in here I've never even heard of.
Right. Well, you need to get hopping. What are you doing all day?
After the show, I'm on the road.
So this is when people say, so is the, people, if I'm out with the book, people always want to pick it up and look and see, how many have I done? So there are some of the obvious, the greatest hits. The Arch is definitely in there. Things like the zoo are in there, although I do have something different you can do at the zoo, not just go to the zoo. But I also am looking to get people off the beaten path because this is just my take on 100 things to do in St. Louis, so I'm trying to give people kind of a rounded experience. So things like go to the Annie Malone May Day Parade. I don't know if that's something a lot of people have done. I think it's an amazing slice of St. Louis life. So just little things like that maybe you wouldn't necessarily think of.
Yeah, and like most things, they're like under a page. I mean, it's not like a whole chapter on a thing. It's very brief.
This is quick and dirty. It's Saturday, it's nice, let's go do something. Or, oh my gosh, it's freezing and we need to get out of the house, what can we go do? So yeah, it's very like, here's the pertinent info, here's the website, here's maybe a picture. That's something new to this edition, pictures. That was a good idea, right? Show people what they're going to do.
Who thought of that?
Some brilliant genius in the publishing department. No. Well, it's funny, the first edition of this book, I should mention, came out 2012, I think. And this was the first of its kind, and I published with a local publisher called Reedy Press. After it was so successful, they realized, wait, there are like a lot of cities in this country. There are now more than 50 100 Things to Do books across the entire country, because local people who live in those cities get excited about things. And so this was the first, I'm very proud to say, but there are a lot of them now, and everybody who did another book after me made something better about it.
I knew there were a lot all over. I had no idea that yours was the first.
It was the first. I was the guinea pig.
Josh Reedy or Josh
Stevens.
Josh,
yep.
I would say Reedy. Josh Stevens, responsible for that.
Josh Reedy, I'm sure. Yes. So it's been sort of, I guess, kind of franchised, if you want to think about it that way. But it's been great, and to get to do a second edition, I've gotten to look at all the other ones that have come after my first one and steal everybody else's great ideas. So, pictures was one of them.
At least you're honest about it.
Hey, I give credit where credit is due.
Well, why don't we take a sample out of your book?
Sure.
And we'll take a look at them on the screen, and you can tell us about what everything's 100 things to do in St. Louis before you die. And who's that?
That's my kid, actually, several years ago. That's my son sledding at Art Hill. And I think that's one of the things that people will tell you, like, oh, you should go sledding at Art Hill, and a lot of people probably never get around to it.
I haven't done it since like 1960.
Well, I mean, you may want to go back, revisit that one. But it's such a great St. Louis experience. It's beautiful in Forest Park. I mean, there's another Forest Park shot, the different season, paddle boating in Forest Park. So I just think getting to all those things that we always mean to do, but never quite get around to is kind of the spirit of the book.
Don't you find that true so often? People don't know what's in their own backyard.
Sure, and it's hard because, this is where you live, you're doing your daily life. So my husband and I just went on a trip about a month ago to Philadelphia, where neither one of us had been. And we were the total tourists, and we were eating at, restaurants, eating dinner at 10 o'clock with like grown-up people. It was exciting. But also just visiting all kinds of places and saying like, oh, why don't we ever do this at home? Why don't we just go sit in the park for an hour at home? Because at home you have to, buy groceries and like pay your bills and get gas in the car and things like that. So it's just kind of making time to get out of your own routine.
Let's look at a couple more.
Sure.
Images from your book.
I hope I remember what they are. This is exciting.
You'll remember. You have them all 100 memorized, don't you?
Sure. Yes, alphabetically. Oh gosh, my kid. Okay, this is my kid again. I only used him 2 times. I swear.
I want people to know that, you don't say that in your book that these are your kids. You just kind of worked them in there.
I've worked them in because they happen to be in great pictures that I needed. So this is actually my son at Cahokia Mounds, which is honestly.
Do you know? I'm so interested in that. I've never been there.
What? Okay, truly, when people say to me, like, well, I mean, 100 things, but what's the best? Or what's your... Cahokia Mounds is in my top 3.
So this is a museum, I guess, somewhere.
This is inside the Interpretive Center at Cahokia Mounds, which is amazing. But Cahokia Mounds itself is, I feel like this is like the great undiscovered jewel of this whole region, because there's the mound at Cahokia Mounds. So if people don't know what Cahokia Mounds is, it's the site of the largest pre-Columbian development north of Mexico.
Before St. Louis ever had a flag.
Yes. And I mean, we're talking, it was a huge metropolis. And so they were mound building indigenous people who lived there. And
they just disappeared. Nobody really knows why, right?
There's a lot of mystery about what happened at the end, if it was some sort of political schism or a religious fight or something like that. But so you can go there today, and part of Cahokia Mounds had been leveled to make subdivisions, and the mounds were used for fill dirt and things like that. But it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Mm-hmm. It's a big deal. And I just think, and every time I've been with people who have never been before, they're astonished that.
I never hear people talk about it, like people I know.
It's a thing. If you went to elementary school in the area, I think you go there on a field trip. That's the picture of my son. We were there on a field trip with his class. But if you didn't, or even if you did, and that's the last time you've been, I think you kind of just, it's some historical thing. I'm a big fan of Cahokia Mounds.
Let's take a look at the next image from your book.
Okay. Oh, this is the Central Library downtown, and
which was, I guess, totally rehab a couple of years ago?
Totally, yes, top to bottom. And it's just this is part of the children's area. It is a most inspiring space. You just go in and you feel smarter just walking in. And then to have access to the books and the programming and all the cool things they do there is really magnificent.
Let's see if we can squeeze a couple more in before our break.
Cathedral Basilica.
Yeah, it had to be.
Yes, so the home of the largest collection of mosaics in the world.
It really is an impressive space.
It is, and I am not a Catholic church attending person, and it's still...
I don't think you have to be religious to appreciate that.
No, you don't, and it's so inspiring. And actually, if you have the time to look up at all the different wings of the mosaics, the entire sort of Catholic history of St. Louis is told through some of the pictures there, and also another great little museum in the basement. They have a mosaics museum that shows you how these things were crafted.
Let's look at another one.
Oh, well, Lou Fest just wrapped up recently, and this is a picture from 2016's Lou Fest, I think. So Lou Fest is a huge 2-day outdoor music festival in Forest Park.
It gets better every year.
Gets better every year, and people were always complaining that we didn't have like a Lollapalooza or Bonnaroo or all these things that are such excitement magnets in other cities, and Lou Fest has definitely kicked it up.
Yeah. Where do you get your ideas for most of this stuff? I mean, it must not all come from you, right?
No, I mean, some of it's just in the air, the zoo, the arch, those things. A lot of it is aspirational things I wished I spent more time doing.
But I mean, was there a particular resource you would go to, or just?
A lot of it is, in my former job, I worked for the Visitor magazine in St. Louis. So it was part of my job to know what was going on. But a lot of stuff is me driving around and I see something that I've never seen before, and I, stop to find out about it or go in the door. That's the thing too. I would tell people, like, just go in the place. I think we see things we wonder about all the time,
right.
And you walk in the door and you find out. So
let's take a look at another image from your book, 100 Things to Do in St. Louis Before You Die. And some of us have more time than others, but we won't go into that.
Well, some of you
Oh,
just have
don't tell me, could that be Circus Flora?
It could be Circus Flora.
That is one of my favorite things in St. Louis to do. I look forward to it every year.
It's the greatest, and it's, again, one of these things that sort of is known maybe not more outside St. Louis, but like the people who perform there and the whole organization has this amazing international reputation.
And the whole story, did you know David Balding,
Yes.
who passed away, of course, was the founder? There's a great story. They would, he was in the circus business, and they were just driving through St. Louis, this was 20, 30 years ago, I don't know, and had a flat tire or something, and he accidentally met this woman that later became his wife, and he relocated here. It's a great,
Wow.
Maybe he made all that up, but it's a great story.
Whatever, it's a great story. And that's the thing, it's got such it just feels so personal to St. Louis.
David would always call it a European one-ring circus.
Yeah.
Right, and it has a story that runs through it.
Right.
Unlike most circuses you go to, it actually tells a story, and
I think
it
people
used the acts to tell the story.
People just feel so connected to it. When you're there, it's just such a charming experience. So.
Yeah, under the big top tent and Grand Center.
Right.
That's how
It's
David always used to build that.
Hard to miss in the summertime. So.
Well, we need to take a little break, and we've got more to talk about, more things to do in St. Louis before, well, We'll be back with Amanda Doyle right after this.
Behold, the angry giant. Behold, the angry giant. Behold, the angry giant. Behold, the angry giant. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Welcome, innovators, dreamers, pioneers of the 21st century. We've been expecting you to come discover your dreams and make your ideas take flight. Just like so many explorers that came before you. Welcome to the hub of opportunity. Welcome to St. Louis. Always exploring.
I'm Steve Potter. Welcome back to City Corner. 100 Things to Do in St. Louis Before You Die. It's a second edition of Amanda Doyle's book, who is with us here today. Mm-hmm. And so you've picked some of these things we know, some things we don't know, some are in between.
Right.
And are some of them 5-minute visits or some of them all-day things?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. I guess it depends on how interesting you find it. I mean, there are some you could string together for a whole day. And as I said, even when I talk about, for example, the St. Louis Zoo is one of the things, but it's not just go to the zoo. One of the things I like to recommend to the zoo is in the wintertime, and it's when they let the penguins out for their winter walks. So they literally bring them out of the somewhat stinky penguin house.
Did you say stinky?
I did say stinky. It's a little stinky in there. But when it's chilly outside, they bring them out and they let them do their waddle outside, and you can watch a penguin parade.
Are those scheduled, or they just do it various times?
I think they are scheduled. I don't know what the schedule is. I feel like it's maybe 10 in the morning, but I'm sure they can let you know that on their website. But I mean, things like that. It's kind of like you can go to the zoo 100 times and have no idea that that's a thing.
Right,
So
absolutely. Well, let's take a look at a couple of images from your book, 100 Things to Do in St. Louis Before You Die, and, oh, well, we know what that is.
Oh, that's the Compton Hill Water
Yeah,
Tower.
but do people ever get to go up in that?
Yes, you can go up in it once a month. They have a scheduled day, and then anytime that there's a full moon, it's open.
Really?
Yes, and it's
For free?
I think it's like $5, and it benefits the revitalization organization. And it's really cool. And it's one of those things, again, this is very close to where I live. And I've driven by it a million times and thought, oh, we should go up. And then you kind of think, but I mean, what? It's a tall building and you go up. You go up and it's amazing. the panorama that you have just going up itself is a fun
And there are only, I may
experience.
have the numbers right, but there are only about 8 water towers like this left in the United States, and we have 2 of them.
We have 3 of them.
3 of them.
We have 3 of them. We have this one, we have the one on North Grand, and then we have another one that I'm not remembering.
Right.
Oh, the other one on North, yes.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's one of those things that's cool, and once you've done it, you won't drive by and think, whatever. You'll drive by and think, I have hiked up that entire building.
I'm going to do that. I'm going to put that on my bucket list. Let's look in the next one.
This is one of my favorite new things in the book. This is the GROW exhibit at the St. Louis Science Center. This is the indoor part of the pavilion. So if you've been driving on the highway and you look where the Exploradome used to be, the dome is no longer there. It is about an acre site outside. This is the only permanent outdoor exhibit in the United States devoted to agriculture. There are other ones that are temporary, seasonal. This one is all the time. And it is astonishing what's going on in that acre. They have an orchard. They have chickens. They have aquaponics, which is growing plants in water with fish underneath. It's a whole sort of nutrient recycling system. There's a lot of different crops that are growing out there. They have experimental crops. They have corn and soybeans to show you what Missouri's main things are. There is so much there to do. And again, you could pop in for a minute and look at the chickens, or you could be there for hours.
Amanda, in your introduction, I guess it is, you say something about that you've always been a list maker.
That's true. Do you know what? I will make a list. I will put things on the list after I did them if they weren't on the list so I can cross them out. That gives me great satisfaction. So if I do something and I never even wrote it down, I will go back and write it down.
It's a little odd.
Kind
of works for you.
You know
How'd
what?
you get into journalism and writing and all that?
Being nosy, again, it goes back to that. I knew from the time I was in elementary school. I'm old enough that when my mom was a teacher, she had the carbon copy paper, that you would write on and make a carbon copy. I would steal it from her.
Young people don't know what that is.
They don't, but it was kind of like writing on a stone with a chisel. But I would take those from her supplies and I would make little neighborhood newspapers for our cul-de-sac or for school. So I was always really I just like hearing people's stories, and I think there's so much. Well, you do this all the time too. There's so much beneath the surface, and you just ask a question, and you can find out a lot of really cool stuff. So that's how I got into it. I went to journalism school, and then was fortunate to keep getting jobs doing writing and things like that. And I do it for fun in my spare time as well.
You have 2 children. You don't have spare time.
I don't, but they're both in school now. It's glorious. I've gotten back to like having 2 whole hours at a time to think, and it's shocking.
Enjoy that.
Yeah.
Let's look at some more pictures from your book.
Well, there's one of the children now. This is my daughter, actually, and she is at another thing that's new to this edition of the book, the HealthWorks Kids Museum.
Never heard of it.
It's not too very far from here, as a matter of fact. It's kind of behind the Science Center off of Mackland, and it's a repurposing of what used to be the Delta Dental Museum down on the landing with the big mouth.
Yeah.
Kids would go there to learn about brushing teeth. Well, now they've got that. The dental theater's moved in there. It's a whole exhibit about the body and sort of healthy living. And this part that she's on is called the Interactive Dude. And it's a gigantic, sliced open, cross-section, fiberglassy, I guess, sculpture of a person and organs. And she's sliding down his shin bone. So you can get a really cool look at what some of the organs inside the human body look like.
Wow.
It's a really fun place to go. They do a candy exchange every year after Halloween. Bring in your unwanted candy and they'll trade it in for prizes and toothbrushes and things like that. And they send it to troops who are serving overseas. So we went just for that. Oh, there's more of the interactive dude. Rib cage, guts. I mean, the kids kind of can't stop crawling all over it.
And where exactly is that?
It's kind of behind Oakland and Mackland. It's
I
tucked
just
back
never
in the
noticed
middle.
it. Yeah.
It's right back there.
Hey, I wanted to ask you about the cover of your book, and we have big version represented between us here.
Yeah.
And you were telling me a little story earlier about not everyone, I guess it's maybe younger people, don't understand the whole bucket reference or what it means.
Right. So it's a little visual joke about kicking the bucket, which means to die. Apparently, children don't necessarily know that.
Yeah, that's a great joke, Amanda.
Well, thank you. I didn't come up with it myself. It's been around a while. But so when I talk to school groups about other things that I write, I always bring this book as well and ask them if they know why there's a bucket on the cover. Usually one or two kids maybe have heard the phrase. They don't always know what it means. Sometimes they say, it's like forgetting a bucket of chicken. And I'm like, well, not really. And this is interesting. Actually, the book is sold at a lot of different places, but a few places that sell it are hospital and healthcare gift shops.
Really?
And this was kind of an obstacle to overcome because they want to sell it, because they, if you have people in a hospital, you have people who are spending a lot of time, sometimes far away from home, and they do sometimes have a lot of spare time, but you don't necessarily want to be reminding people of impending mortality.
I feel like I shouldn't laugh, but I'm about to.
Well, it was not something I really even thought about, and I take my book everywhere and say, would you like to sell this? And they're like, ah. So I don't know if they maybe display it just with the pretty part on the top. I'm not sure.
Well,
but
like
it is what it is. I can't get away from it.
All right, well, let's look at a couple more places that you recommend that we see before the whole bucket episode happens.
Before we get a bucket of chicken.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so this is Leroy Pearson, who is a local blues musician. And the point of this being in the book, not just to see Leroy Pearson, but is to check out the blues scene in St. Louis, and particularly new in this edition, the National Blues Museum, which opened downtown last year. Again, another thing.
What a neat place, by the way.
It's amazing. It's so well done. It's beautiful inside. And I'm a music fan sort of casually. I don't really get into any one genre, but it does tell a fascinating story. And it is national in scope. So it tells the St. Louis part of it, but so much of what led to St. Louis having a blues scene came from other places all over the world.
Here's another one.
Yeah. So there are great artifacts there. And one of my favorite things to do there is you can create your own blues song as you go through.
I read about that.
They have stations, interactive stations, and they recruited members of the Bottoms Up Blues Gang to make like these personal videos. So you can select different parts. So you can select certain lyrics or the way you want the drum to sound or whatever. And as you move through the museum, you add to it. When you get to the end, you get to listen to your whole song.
We've only got a few minutes left and a few more images I want to share. Before we do that, though, I want to kind of briefly recap why it's so appropriate that you wrote this book. Because you're not a native St. Louisan. Mm-hmm. If I remember our story correctly before, years ago when I talked to you about it, not sure you'd ever visited here until you moved here. I think the man you married was from here and you relocated here.
That's pretty much true. Yep, I actually went to college in Columbia, so I had passed through St. Louis many times, but I married a St. Louis boy and we moved here.
And you were from where?
Originally from Memphis.
So the thing was, kind of what predates this is that you wanted to make a point to get to know your new community, you moved to the Tower Grove area.
Right.
And you wanted to find things to do.
Find things to do and find out what was going on in this town, mm-hmm. Right? Because we moved to the city when we moved here. My husband grew up in the suburbs, so it was almost like getting to know a new city for him as well.
I remember a story you told me that you moved to Tower Grove and he was from West County or something, mm-hmm. and you were illustrating the fact how you didn't know your neighborhood, like you had to buy nails or something. So you went to like Creve Coeur to buy nails because you didn't know where to go in the city?
Batteries.
Batteries,
we
right.
We drove to a Walgreens in Creve Coeur. It's true. Because I was like, I'm not sure what's around here, but I know where there is a Walgreens at, Mason and Olive.
But you got over that.
I got over it.
I think we've got two more images from your book. Let's
Sure.
take a look at those.
This is the Magic House. Of course, so the Magic House is a perfect thing for this book. Magic House. Of course, everyone will tell you to go there. My recommendation is to make sure to go up the stairs into the old portion of the Magic House because there is so much stuff up there that hasn't been really changed.
Is this the one on Webster somewhere?
It's on Lindbergh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so if you go up sort of in the garret of the house, the old house part of it is where the electromagnetic ball is that makes your hair stand on end. But there's also this whole, I don't know, I hadn't been there the first 20 times I went to the Magic House. I didn't even know it was up there. Just a lot of cool stuff that's up there, and I think it gets overlooked for the newer features. So this is all about finding the original Magic House inside the Magic House.
All right, we've got one more.
City Garden.
Of course. What a place. I've really enjoyed that place coming together.
It is, you kind of can't remember what it was like before we had it, even though it's only been there for, I think, 6 or 7
Because
years.
basically there was nothing there.
Basically, there was nothing. So downtown, sort of the stretch between Keener Plaza and Union Station, I think it was 2 blocks of, grass, I'm sure is what it was. But the Gateway Foundation and the city partnered on making City Garden, which has 24 large-scale sculptures. Everything's very playful, as you can see from that picture. And I just love how there really aren't a lot of rules. Mm-hmm. Kids splash in the fountains, kids climb on the sculpture. So to me, it's the perfect embodiment of what we should be.
Well, one thing I want to ask you about before we leave is because sometimes I troll the internet. And I saw a picture recently of you with David Robertson, who's the music director of St. Louis Symphony. I was wondering what that was about.
That was about a show that I used to host, Steve. A little show that was not broadcast anywhere or recorded anywhere. It was people sitting on a couch in a coffee shop, and it was called Free Candy. It was very exciting. And we would invite illustrious guests, such as myself or yourself, to come and talk to a live audience about whatever, and it was exciting. So David Robertson came one night and talked about his passion for the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra, and it was spellbinding.
He's an interesting guy.
He is, and his enthusiasm is ridiculous. I felt like people were eating out of the palm of his hand. He was describing people who I probably have never been to the symphony and may never go, but were just enraptured by his descriptions.
Yeah, and of course now this is going to be his last season, I guess, or next season.
I know.
Right.
Yep. It'll be interesting to see how that changes.
Did he happen to let any information out about what he's doing, or
No, I haven't talked
no
to
plans,
him.
no future plans?
I got to find him on Facebook, I guess. I don't know.
Do you think there's going to be a 3rd edition of this?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I never thought there would be a 2nd one. I hope so. I mean, it's very fun, and to me, the fun part is things keep changing, in my opinion, for the better in a lot of these categories, and I just hope that more people find amazing things to do.
One fun thing I knew that you never expected to do, you did just recently, because you went to Alton, Illinois, just a couple of months ago to watch the fireworks, and
Right.
that was like a spur-of-the-moment thing.
Spur of the moment. It was Sunday night, because Alton does their fireworks on the 3rd, and I figured we could go, and the kids didn't have to get up for anything the next morning, so we drove across that big bridge, and there we were.
3rd edition might have Alton in there. You never know.
It could happen.
Amanda Doyle, thank you so much. You're always a lot of fun, and I love your work.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Good. Come back when you have your next project, too.
Okay, I will.
I'm Steve Potter. That's all the time we have for this edition of City Corner. Get the book. Do a couple of these. Thanks for watching.